Good morning and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Thursday, the 28th of October. Shout out to my nephew Quinn Leisure in London, Ontario, turning 22 today. I hope you and Nicole have a good day and you do something special, eat some cake, and think of me. I am thinking today about following up from yesterday's conversation about having that nutshell of why we go to church. Not because it's social, but because that thing that says, really at the heart of it, what is it that we get out of church? What is it that we give into church? What is it about church that makes church different than the other social places that we can be in the world? And once we've articulated that, once we could share with another person that this is what I believe and this is why church itself is important to me, then we need to get into being able to talk about the more than 45-second or 2-minute conversation that we can have when somebody comes into church, or we run into somebody and say, "Oh, I'm going to church on Sunday," and they're like, "Well, why do you go to church? Like, what's the point?" Once we have that nutshell conversation, once we've got that little sort of, I don't want to say a speech, we shouldn't be pat, we've got something memorized. It should come from the heart. But once we know what we would say to somebody to intrigue them, to say, "Welcome into my church," or "Would you like to come with me?" Then it comes down to understanding for ourselves whether or not we actually articulate this out loud. But how do we then know, beyond a 45-second to 2-minute little talk, nutshell, how do we know, what is it that we know of ourselves and of God that does indeed draw us to go to church? What is it that keeps us there? What is it that helps us to want to go to church each week? That's doing deep theological reflection. And when I was in my first year of seminary, that scared the bejeebus out of me. Oh, heavens. Trying to do deep theological reflection, I thought, I'm going to fail this. And I was told really quickly by my field ed teacher, the Reverend Kate Merriman, who was a gentle, gentle soul and a fantastic priest. She told us, she said, the only way you can fail doing a theological reflection is if you refuse to reflect and you refuse to think about God. Because that's what it's about. Theological, study of God, reflection, reflecting, right? Thinking. So she would have us do these theological reflections in which we thought about a situation, and then we thought about, okay, so here's this thing that happened. What was a biblical thing in our life that what was a biblical story that we could relate to, or a situation in the Bible that maybe was similar, or maybe something that a verse that spoke to us, that really spoke to that situation. And then we would reflect on that and thinking about that story, that Bible story, or that verse, or that situation, and how it unfolded in the Bible. How did it intersect with that? And then the next part would be how do we learn from that? We know about this situation here in our own lives. We've now looked at it through the biblical sense of looking at something similar or something that made us think of that. Where is God speaking to us from that? What can we learn from God in that? And breaking it down like that, after we did it a couple times, we all, I think, began to realize that we all reflect theologically a lot of the time. We just don't call it that. When we pray and we take a situation to God and say, my sister is hurting. There's a situation going on in her life and she is hurting and she needs help. And then we think about that and we give that to God and we pray and ask God, what can I do? How can you help? We are digging deep theologically and we are reflecting, especially if we don't just drop it in God's lap and walk away. If we actually sit with it for a while and say, okay, God, speak to me. Help me to understand what my role in this is. What can I do? My role may simply be to pray, to hold her in prayer. My role may be to go with her to doctor's appointments, or to walk with her through difficult conversations with a spouse or with a friend or with a child. My role may be to research things for her. Who knows? The role may be big or small, but in participating in that situation, including praying, we are digging deep and we are acting theologically as well. We are bringing God into the equation. And when God comes into the equation, wonderful, miraculous things can happen. That does not mean that healing necessarily always happens or the situation just automatically gets better. But our ability to deal with the situation, our ability to pray, listen, to observe things, to take a different perspective, All of that happens when we invite God to participate in what we're talking about, in what we're doing, in what we're feeling. And God's perspective is so much greater than ours. And that's something in itself that we need to learn. So I think that we need to do the work as Christians coming into the pews. We talked about greeting people and having that sort of nutshell, sort of, this is what I get out of church statement that we have ready to trip off our tongues if we are asked. Indeed, sometimes even when we're not asked. But we also have to have that authenticity of belief, that when we are sitting in that pew, when that person stumbles into the rain and comes in and the greeter welcomes them and they come and they plop down beside us and we've given them our little thing, and then the priest says, we're going to sing hymn number 1, Holy, Holy, Holy. That when they look over at us as we're showing them, where is the hymn? What's a hymnal? Not everybody knows what that is. People don't necessarily sing together. So showing them by example, how do we sing? How do you follow the music? What are we doing when we sing? When they watch you through the service and they see you responding, even if it's just simply quietly listening, maybe moving or praying, or how you hold yourself, are they going to see the authenticity of your faith? Are they looking at you and seeing someone who honestly does believe, even if you honestly do grapple with understanding things? Just because we have faith doesn't mean we have all the answers. And just because we believe in God doesn't mean we like God all the time. It doesn't mean that we are like, okay, God, whatever you say, I'll do exactly. It doesn't mean that we are always eager to please God. Sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're angry at God. Sometimes we're frustrated. Sometimes it feels like God is absent. And yet we still come back. And I think when we get to that place, whether we can articulate it with words or not, but when we get to that place where we are authentically faithful in ourselves, that's when other people will start to recognize that, yeah, this person is for real. And what they believe in is for real too. I think some people maybe are able to believe in God through circumstances that we can't see. Maybe God does speak to them in a moment, or they have something happen all of a sudden in their lives that they just have faith, or maybe they watch a movie or read a book. But I think for the most part, people will learn about faith and what real faith is all about by watching those of us who have faith, if we live it authentically all the time. And talking about the church, bringing people to church, encouraging people to come to church. The church building and our church services need to be places where people are greeted, where we are able to articulate what it is we're doing and why we're doing it in a way that makes sense and is not overwhelming. But also people who come through those doors and listen to what we have to say, they need to see and feel that what we're offering, what we're talking about, the reason why we give up an hour or an hour and a half on Sunday morning is for something that we believe in completely, something that we trust ourselves to, that's bigger and greater than we are. That's not something we can talk about so much as it is something we have to live. But then they need to also see us living that way when they see us outside the church building, when they run into us at the arena or the grocery store or the studio, the yoga studio. Wherever we are, they need to see that we are living authentically what we live when we're at church. And that will be the greatest piece of evangelism we can give, when we can share with others the truth that what we believe on Sunday is how we live Monday through Saturday as well. Then they'll think, okay, yeah, this place is for real. This isn't an arena with no heat and no hot chocolate at the vending machines and nobody to chat with. This is a place where I can go, where it's comfortable, where I can sit next to somebody and just chat and learn about them and learn about their life, and they can listen to me and find out about me and be honestly interested. Where I can come back next week and find out that they remember my name and they're exactly who they were last week. That authenticity is a huge part of who we are and what we do as Christians. And until we can offer that in addition to greeting and our nutshell, we won't be ready for the church to be that place that is all that God calls it to be. Have a good day. I will see you tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel. God bless you.